You're listening to Your Two Cents, the podcast, made possible by credit unions and produced by Canadian Content Studios. I'm Jonathan Torrance. On the subject of giving back, a friend of mine, Derico Simmons, said something that really stuck with me. He said people have this idea that you have to make grand sweeping gestures or learn a new skill to help. He said, just do what you do. If you're a lifeguard, offer swimming lessons to kids that otherwise wouldn't be able to take them. If you own a restaurant, make a few sandwiches once in a while to hand out to those in need. I love that idea. Today, Alicia and Sylvia talk all things giving with the QEII Foundation to better understand how you can support causes you love, no matter the size of your bank account.
I personally used to confuse philanthropy with extreme wealth, like having a building named after you or a wing or something, right? But it turns out that philanthropy can happen no matter what your budget is, and it can also come in many forms.
The QE2 Hospital is based here in Halifax, and it services all of Atlantic Canada. It's near and dear to both Sylvia and I's hearts, and we're excited today to talk with Jessica and Allison from the QE2 Foundation about the impacts of giving.
Welcome.
So, to be clear, the two of you earn a living raising money. I need to know, how does that work? How do you get into this? Jessica, why don't you kind of kick it off?
Yeah, absolutely. So fundraising is everything from your kids' sports teams 50-50 to what we do, which is a full-on business operation. It's, as a business, all about just growing the size of the pie. So you can have the low cost bake sale and raffles, and you can raise, this much money. But then you can take a really business-minded approach and you can raise exponentially more money. And I actually didn't even realize it was a career option. And I don't know many people who did. I got into it personally because someone who was in my own network was connected and still is connected directly to the QE2 Foundation and saw something in me, I guess, that he thought I would be a really good fit for this industry and suggested that I have a conversation with our then president and CEO. And of course, I'm never one to turn down a good conversation opportunity. So I jumped at the chance. And after that conversation, I was just completely sold on the notion that I could earn a living and do good for my community. And we just stayed in touch, and eventually the opportunity came up for me to get involved, and the rest is kind of history. And it's a very similar story for everyone that I work with. Most of us found our ways into philanthropy rather than setting our career paths that way. But I'm not sure, now that was, almost a decade ago, so I'm not sure what the landscape currently looks like and if younger professionals are seeing it now as an option and kind of setting their sights on it right out the gate.
Allison, is it the same kind of path for you too as well, or did you find it differently?
Yes, so very much similar experience on my end. I didn't realize that it was an opportunity. I volunteered a bit in high school and in university, started seeing people who were kind of getting paid to do this, and I looked at myself and I was like, I want to do that. So I went into a different career path out of university, didn't love it, took a time to pause and figure out how can I do what I saw other people doing when I was volunteering. And that led me to the QE2 Foundation here today.
That is amazing. I know that my definition of philanthropy is obviously outdated. You don't need to be trying to raise, giving enough money to have a wing named after you or something. But it does feel intimidating. That word alone feels really intimidating. So how can you define philanthropy for us, and who would donors be?
Yeah, so taking it back to the Greek tradition, the word philanthropy grows from the words philos, meaning love, and anthropos, meaning humanity. So literally in the original Greek meaning, the word philanthropy is the love of humanity. We often think of philanthropy in kind of three different pillars. So time, talent, and treasure. So yes, we often think about writing a check or, taking the money from our pockets and throwing it into a bucket as philanthropy. But there's also that time and talent opportunities as well. So volunteering to be on a board, raising money through events, using your skill set to leverage the opportunities at a charity. So it's so much more than just writing a check.
And I would say to you, Sylvia, actually, that you're not wrong. Philanthropy is, making that significant public contribution that results in a wing or a building being named after you. It's just, that's not the whole story. It's not wrong. It's just not complete. So I actually have a little experience that I wonder if I can share with you about the flip side of it.
Yeah, of course.
So awesome. So it's something that I just like, when something really resonates with you and you can remember it so vividly. We were announcing the launch of an $8.1 million campaign at the QE2 for surgical robotics. And we were on site. This was pre-COVID. We had the lights, the camera, and it was a really big celebration. It was huge for us and lots of people milling around. And there happened to be a patient walk by, and clearly, in his Johnny shirt and carrying his IV pole, and he approached our president and CEO, who was all suited up and ready for his media moment, and said to him, like, what's going on here? And he explained to him what we were raising funds for, the magnitude of the impact, the fundraising goal. And this patient was just so inspired, and I think that's kind of the key to all of this and why it resonates so deeply. He was so inspired by it, and he reached into his little bag that he had with him, and he pulled out a handful of coins, and he was like, I know it's not much, but it's all I have, and I want you to have it. Like, I want to know that I've contributed to this. And it made him feel good to know that he was part of it. And it made all of us, like, we all just were so floored that somebody could be so compelled to play a role in something that would impact them. And he was having his own healthcare experience, and this still mattered that much to him to support other people in his community. And it's the change in your pocket, and it's the multi-million-dollar building named after you.
That's amazing. That's such a cool story.
Yeah, thank you.
I love that too, because I think for me, giving has been something that has always been a big part of who I am, whether it was clicking the button at a cash register to pay a dollar, or giving my time where I could. And it's something that's been consistent for Scott and I from the days where we haven't been able to pay our bills to the world that we live in and have created for ourselves now, being able to give a lot more. But that time piece, I think, that you talked about, Allison, is something that I think a lot of people really underestimate when it comes to giving. And we had a really cool conversation with Melissa Leong about all of the ways that people can use their money to live happy lives and to be happy. And one of them was that giving piece, and it didn't have to be financial, and it could be time. And I think people underestimate how good it makes you feel to, get involved. Aside from obviously feeling good, why do you think people get involved in philanthropy?
So we know that philanthropy is deeply personal. My reasons are different from your reasons are different from the person sitting next to you. But we also know that gratitude plays a big role in it as well. Sometimes it's about paying it forward, like how you mentioned, Alicia, about you've been fortunate to be on the receiving end. But when you've had the opportunity, you also really appreciate the opportunity to give back.
Yeah, and even to go off that, philanthropy is also about healing. We often see so many people, they have a family member or a loved one that passes, and they come to us and ask what they can do, whether it is, giving a donation in honor of that loved one, or starting a fundraiser in their memory. And it's really part of that grieving process, which is kind of nice, when they might be in a moment where they feel like they can't do anything, but they can, when it means, changing the future for another patient down the road. But in the end, philanthropy can also just feel good. I often think about sometimes in the morning, you're in line at Tim Hortons and you just feel like paying for the person's coffee behind you. We're talking like $2 maybe, but how good does that feel when you just know that, that next person's going to come up to the window and have a little surprise to start their day. In the end, it's just, a nice way to feel good.
Yeah, it's really interesting. So my dad passed away last year, but had spent a significant amount of time at the QE2. And I think when you have a loved one in a hospital setting for such a long time, you see the amazing people that are working. You see, the conditions that they're working in. You see the challenges they're going through so firsthand with such a huge magnifying glass that you can't help but feel compelled. I often would just send donuts by Uber Eats. I don't live in town, and through COVID, it was really hard to be able to physically get in, but I would send donuts to a nursing station, or I would, try and just call and track down a nurse who'd been particularly helpful to my dad that he had mentioned to me, that I could just say thank you and just made the extra effort to find somebody and send my thanks. And then when he did pass away, it became really important. I actually went back to meet some of these people that I hadn't been able to actually see in person. And I think when you look at our healthcare system, you just realize that there's so many ways you can give in your particular case that it matters so much. And interestingly, Alicia and I have another friend who passed away last year, and she just had her birthday the other day. And her whole thing when she was going through chemo was put a kind deed in your feed. And she just wanted to be able to sit in chemo and go through her Instagram feed and see all the goodness being done in the world. And so that just happened a couple of days ago. And it was inundated again. She was gone. And this was, a chance to celebrate her legacy by doing nice things for each other. And I think that just really fosters community. It helps people remember people they love. It just helps remember that there's nice people in the world, because sometimes you can be having a morning that maybe it's not starting off so well, and someone buys you your coffee and it can turn your whole day around. And so I think the whole point of it is, it's not just for the super rich. It's for people who just want to have a richer life experientially as well too.
Absolutely. And I can even build on that. So that's a few times now we've mentioned that the drive-through and buying somebody's coffee. My first job was actually in a coffee shop drive-through. And I can remember one day that it was a train effect. So somebody just happened to buy the coffee for the person in the car behind them. And it went on. I think it was like 17 cars, it was a lot. It was almost 20 cars, and we were all working together. It's 6:30 on a Saturday morning, and it was lighting everyone up. We were all excited about it, just to see how happy every driver was to pass that on. And then we started telling them, like, oh my God, you guys are the 12th car, the 13th car. Like it really fosters that sense, like you're talking about, of love for humanity and community and that connection. And it's really cool to see how contagious it is.
I think too, it acts of kindness specifically, but when we're talking to like donations and giving and making a difference, it can create these giant ripple effects that you might not feel right then and there, but it might come back to you. And people, I think, the first giving thing I ever did on my platform, I was sitting with my friend in a Starbucks coffee restaurant, and she said something about tipping the baristas that were there, and I just posted in my story, and so many people gave anywhere from $2 to $50, and we ended up raising like $2,500 to tip the baristas that were in at the time. And I'll never forget, a year later, one of the women who was working at that time messaged me to tell me that at the time she didn't know how she was going to pay her power bill, and that extra bit of money really helped her. And then she sent me this picture of these baskets that a year later her and her daughter had created, that she was giving to other people and paying it forward. So I think too that when we a lot of people struggle with, like, can I give now? When will it be? Or accepting the help, that I think it just creates this ripple effect that comes back either to you or to others. And I think that's so cool. And just, Allison, to touch on your comment about philanthropy and grief, I don't think I really ever thought about that, to be honest. And I think that when you're giving, to whatever it is, like, we're often trying to alleviate a little bit of the burden while people are grieving, or we're donating to kind of help with our own grief, or we spent the day, Sylvia and I, doing kind deeds the other day, and that helps me with my grief. I don't think I ever really thought about how impactful philanthropy itself and like donating, getting involved, can truly be on grief itself. So I really, really appreciated that point.
Yeah, no, it's a powerful tool, and there's just so many ways to look at how philanthropy might play a role in any moment in your life, whether it's good or bad.
Hey, want to know where I got this sweater? Okay, I know you can't see it, but trust me, it looks incredible on me. More importantly, it's from one of my favorite local small businesses. And one of the best parts about shopping local is that not only do I look exquisite, but I also know that for every $100 I spend, 68 of it stays local. Credit unions also love to support local businesses because for every dollar spent at them, it creates 2 to 4 times more jobs and economic benefits than if I was to shop big box. So next time you're about to shop, think local, will ya? And if you're dreaming of becoming a business owner yourself, why not take those dreams right on into a credit union? They can turn them into reality. I've seen it happen.
I know, and we've touched on this a little bit, but just to kind of dig into this a bit more, that a big barrier to donating is that people don't think that they have enough money to be able to do it. And so when someone asks for a collection of something, they are intimidated by, maybe being judged by how much they could give. Even to the point of your story, Jessica, he took out his change and said, I don't know if this is enough. Can you talk a little bit about the impact of donations, no matter their size?
I mean, it's so understandable that people might feel that way. And it's a message that we're always eager to correct. For example, if you look at a movement like Giving Tuesday, it's a national movement where it's all about the collective impact and what we can do together as a community. Because yes, we need those big $1 million gifts, but we really need those $5, $10, $25 gifts as well. It's coming together to do what you can, kind of for the good of our community.
For example, here at the QEII Foundation, we had over 13,000 separate donations that were less than $50. We only had 591 gifts that were over $1,000. So those $13,000 or those 13,000 plus donations, they added up to over $250,000. And so that is an incredible impact that we wouldn't have been able to make without each and every one of those gifts, without each and every one of those people who were behind them. And when you think about relativity and what's meaningful to you, my $25 gift, that coming out of my bank account, that means as much to me as someone else's $25,000. Right. And it's all about making your biggest impact, bringing meaning into your life. And if that matters to you, that makes you feel good. And that's an area that you want to have an impact on. You're doing that. That's full circle. And we talked about it being so deeply personal. That's all part of it. And we're working really hard, as an industry to make philanthropy more accessible, to help people see how they can be involved in a way that makes sense for them.
It's the impact of the totality of it all is really, really amazing because you don't think that you're the contributor to such a big pot. And I know we were kind of laughing, Alicia, before you got on, we were asking why your skin was glowing. And you said it was because you were getting your clothes ready to donate. But I know for me, there's a couple of places that I will go and take clothes that I don't need anymore. And I will find places where I know the impact of the community that they're going to. So whether it's something like a Dress for Success, or, my husband comes from a town where they have a store called It Takes a Village, and it's completely community and volunteer run, and it's all free. So people can come in on a point system and get a blazer for an interview, or food for their pantry, and it's all free. And so there's so many cool ways that you can donate even in those moments. Maybe you're not physically spending in that moment. Obviously you spent some money to get those clothes in the first place, but could they be going to somewhere that there's a real impact the minute it gets there? And you don't know if that person, puts on that blazer and has a change of confidence and gets a job, and then the ripple effect of what happens from there. So I think we don't need to just think about it as, is my money enough, but is it, where can my time and my energy and my, clothes that I'm not wearing anymore could be going to?
It's kind of like that whole, if you think you're too small to make a difference, try sleeping with a mosquito in the room. Like,
Yeah,
it all matters.
So, Allison, I think it was you who mentioned earlier about time, talent, and treasure. And I just want to dig into that a little bit more, because I think that's really important for people to understand that it's not just that treasure piece that really holds value when we're looking to give and get into philanthropy.
Yeah, I mean, I think one pillar, it all comes together as a piece of a pie. You cannot have, everyone needs volunteers, for example, in philanthropy. volunteers, whether they're coming together to help call donors to thank them or put an event on for an organization, whatever it might be, it's just equally as important as that person that's mailing a check. And not that that treasure piece is any less important, but volunteers are needed just as much as talent is needed. People coming together to do what they can and be generous in the way that they can be generous. So being generous doesn't just mean the dollar amount that that person can provide. It's what can they do to, contribute to a bigger and better cause.
I'm even thinking about when you see somebody post on social media that they're organizing an event or they're raising funds in support of a cause, you want to be able to support them in that ask, but if you can't support them in that ask, it's also helpful for you to share that message. So you amplifying that and sharing that out to your networks, and you helping them to get that out there to people that they may not have otherwise been able to, that is helping. That is giving your time, that's giving your talent, that's opening up doors and making introductions. You didn't write the check, but you may have introduced them to somebody who's going to make a $20 donation or a $100 donation to their cause that they care deeply about.
Amazing. I know that a hang up people might have is that sometimes it's a bit unclear about where your money is actually going. How can people donate with the peace of mind that their funds are actually impacting the cause that they intend for it to?
So it's actually different for every organization. Different organizations have different processes and standards and ways of communicating that. For us in our organization at the QEII Foundation, because we're Atlantic Canadian, something that we're really proud to be able to say is that all funds raised here stay here. So it's actually, I had a conversation with somebody from a credit union the other day. She said, all member dollars stay here, and it's the same for us. When we're talking about making an impact here, and we've had people participate and raise funds for a piece of equipment, and the next year they've found themselves as patients in the health center personally benefiting from a piece of equipment that they were asking people to support them to raise funds for the year prior. And so it's that tangibility, it's the visibility, and promoting that message to our audience any way that we possibly can. So look at the organization that you're curious about, look at their websites and their socials, and you'll know in your heart if you trust that.
I love that. And yes, it is. I think it's so different. And I think that we as humans just have this natural curiosity to know where the money that we're spending is going and who it's impacting. And I think that's also a part of the piece of that what makes us feel good is seeing our money in action. Obviously, healthcare in Canada is something that our taxes pay for. And we do pay a lot in taxes. So can you share why we need healthcare philanthropy here?
Yeah, absolutely. So, I mean, the reality is that the government can only fund so much. So, healthcare philanthropy, we need the community to help take healthcare from standard to transformational care. Um, and that's precisely why healthcare philanthropy exists.
It's amazing. My family lives in southwestern Ontario, and currently right now my mother-in-law is actively doing a fundraiser for a very specific piece of equipment for their hospital, and they do it through an online auction. And so there's lots of things there, and the price points on the auction items vary from $10 to a few $100s, but they're raising money for a very specific piece of equipment that people in that community, I'm sure, will absolutely find themselves on at some point eventually as well too. And again, like I saw firsthand what really happens when you have a loved one in the hospital for a prolonged period of time and the resources just aren't there. People are doing incredible work for not enough money without the best equipment. It's also can be a barrier to the kind of care the people that you love are getting. If we don't have the funds within our hospitals, are they getting access to the things that they need? Are they able to get a surgery or have the care that they need in the right amount of time to be able to help save them? And so I feel really strongly about ensuring that we're contributing more than what our governments are to healthcare fundraising. I know that it can maybe seem a bit chicken and egg because we do pay so much taxes in that way. But there are very real people that are working there and impacted by the work that hospital fundraising is doing, from my point of view, at least anyway, in my experience.
Yeah, I always think if I'm sick, I want the transformational care. I don't want the standard care, right? And so if that's what I want for myself, that's also what I want for my parents, for my family, for my neighbors, for my community.
Yeah, absolutely. Okay, so you've convinced me that philanthropy is not just about the money. There's got to be money, though, ultimately to make the impact. So, how can people get involved, and how can your time translate into financial donations? I know you spoke a little bit to sharing on social is giving your time and your platform, which could translate into money. Are there other ways that we can give our time that hopefully translates to other people giving money?
So yes, I'll give a specific example. So getting involved with a peer-to-peer fundraising event. So that's where you come together with your community to participate in a very specific activity, and you reach out to your peers, peer to peer, to ask them to get involved with you, to join you in this mission. So you've probably seen Facebook fundraising where people are like, "Hey, it's my birthday, and I really care about animals or food security or cancer care. So please donate in honor of my birthday."
That's what I'm doing, and I'm so excited. I'm going to use this as my opportunity to kind of plug. Obviously, being from here, um, getting to work with the QE2 or the hospitals in general in this area is very important to me. And then when you have a plethora of people at your disposal, and I've got that community crowdfunding is something that I think that is easily accessible to me, and goes along with that conversation of a lot of people giving a little can have a huge impact. So yeah, we're doing our fundraiser for the QE2, and I'm going to plug that right now. I'm doing my celebration for my half birthday with the QE2, and the idea is to promote the birthday fundraisers, the DIY birthday fundraisers. So this is exactly the same idea. It's going to be, hey, it's my birthday, and I'm raising money for. The cool part about this one specifically is that people can actually pick which area their funds are going to. So back on that conversation of where is my money going, these DIY fundraisers have really broken it down for people. You can pick from, immediate priority at the QE2 to mental health research to cancer care, all the way to innovation for spinal robotics to patient support. There's literally kind of everything. So you can kind of go through this list and pick what resonates most to you and then start fundraising. And then there's going to be a celebration, because I think that obviously people need to be rewarded for spending that time and putting out that effort. So we're going to have a birthday party celebration. So for everybody who raises $500 by March 31st, they're going to get their own invitation to my half birthday party, because that's what we're going to be celebrating. But I see it more so as everybody's birthday party, or your dog's or your child's, or, whoever you want's birthday party. But yeah, so that's what we're doing this year, and it's kind of already kicked off. And I know both of you have probably played a part in what has been happening behind the scenes. I get the very pretty pictures and all of the other stuff, but I'm truly grateful for the work that goes on behind the scenes, and I can't wait to see it all put together. But this definitely kind of ties everything that you have all talked about today with that whole, I get to be the talent for this part to share with my community, and then my community gets to either donate $1 where they can, or share and kind of get that extra exposure. And then hopefully once the fundraiser is over, we're going to have a QE2 with a lot more funding in a lot of really important areas. So I'm super, super, super excited to be a part of that. But this is probably the funnest way that I've gotten to fundraise so far, being so I got to do a photo shoot and eat a birthday cake, and I get to kind of share that with my audience. What are some of the most fun ways that either you've seen people raise funds, or you've gotten to be involved in y'all's positions, or maybe before this?
Yeah, and I mean, I think too, so much creativity has especially come into fundraising over the past few years, and I think we have COVID to thank of that for that, because people were stuck in their homes, still potentially wanting to, give back, but not sure how to do it because they couldn't now host an event, or they couldn't have a lemonade stand at the end of their driveway because people just really weren't willing to stop by and kind of be around others. So I mean, we've seen so many things, anything from virtual truth or dare games, people going live on Facebook to shave their heads. We've seen such a range. One unique one was a dinner party, so having friends over and having a dinner party at their home, and whatever they would have spent on the bill at a restaurant, instead they all came together to kind of chip in and donate it instead. So it's so fun. We get to see such a range, anything from those lemonade stands that I mentioned earlier to some full on organized events. So, and this is across all organizations. It doesn't matter what you want to do. It's figuring out what is your passion, what is your interest, and using that to create a fundraiser.
Kids do a really good job of fundraising. I think it's that whole like they're so resourceful and they do what they have to do to, and they're so caring and authentic. We've seen a lot of kids actually who offer services in their neighborhoods, things like helping with gardening or washing cars in exchange for donations. And I really see this as a win all around because kids are learning about community and they're learning about business. And also, the people who may not have had the capacity to do some of these odd jobs have help with it. And then this kind of all leads into the conversation around service learning and how valuable volunteer work can be to help build up your resume. And we don't talk about that a lot, but it really is a win all around, no matter which angle you're looking at it from.
Yeah, one of the fundraisers I've loved to participate in is that there is a daycare center that needed some extra funding. And so they came up with this idea of a Cinderella ball. And so all of the parents and the kids would all come dressed up like princes and princesses. And it was to raise money for this children's center. We don't have kids, but my husband and I would help to raise money, but we also volunteered as the prince and princess who would greet everybody as they were entering. So for a few years in a row before COVID, that was what we did every October. We dressed up as a prince and princess and we greeted all of these kids and their families to the ball. And it was so much fun. And it looked like a wedding for kids. It was so funny. Everything was like mini and adorable. And it was they did such a beautiful job of putting it on, but it raised a lot of money. They got incredible silent auction donations. And it was just a really different kind of event to raise money that it was just an absolute blast. And it was really cool to see the kids kind of understand that they were at something that benefited a lot of them. A lot of these kids were going to this daycare center and then they'd see more equipment in their schools or whatever the case may be, but it got them really pumped up to, want to do nice things for each other, which was really cool.
I always like to say fundraising can be fun, and as cheesy and corny as that sounds, why not enjoy what you're doing to help the community?
I think anytime you get a group of people together who have that passion and that engagement, like that Cinderella ball and dressing up as a prince and a princess, you can do anything. You just figure out, where do we have people that want to be together, that have a shared interest, and how can we incorporate that element of giving back even in a small way. And often it snowballs and it grows over time if you've got those people who just are enjoying what they're doing. That engagement is such a critical factor.
There's a cancer survivor in Dartmouth. His name's Cannon, and he creates the House of Doom every year. And it's this giant haunted house that raises funds for the IWK. And I can't tell you how Cannon reinvigorated my joy of like donating and being involved in fundraising, because he is just so passionate about it. And he's young, like he just is so passionate about Halloween, and said, I'm a cancer survivor, I love the IWK, I love Halloween, how can we make this happen? And it is one of the coolest events. Last year they shut down the street for it, and there were so many people, but especially kids showing up to get involved and be doing something. So, and I think that those are the things, like you said, that truly raise the most amount of money. It's like, how can we get the community together to have fun and to show up? Because you forget about that, monetary value when you're having your almost peeing your pants in the middle of a haunted house. So I have to shout out Cannon because I think he is somebody who's doing something really wonderful in our local area and really has combined that passion for something that he loves with giving back. And he truly reinvigorated my passion for like giving and finding ways to do so. So I wanted to shout him out.
That's so fun. I feel like I would give him extra money to not have to be terrified, but I love the spirit of it because I'm a scaredy cat. The one thing here, I mean, we're a podcast about money. We hate leaving money on the table and seeing money go unused. And one thing that I have learned about recently is employer matching. So can you just touch on it just briefly on what that looks like for people who may not have heard of that before?
Yeah, so it's an incredible way to make an impact. So employer matching is as simple as, I donate $50 to an organization that is meaningful to me. And then I go to my employer and ask them to match that. However they may do that, whether it's often online platforms, which makes things really easy. Now, this is a stat from the US, but it's estimated that $4 to $7 billion is in matching gift funds goes unclaimed per year. So that is a lot of money and impact that's left on the table. And
did you say billion or million?
Billion.
With
4
a
to
B.
7 billion. Yes. And it's just because people don't know that their employer offers a program like this. And so imagine the impact that could be made across, I'm going to say, the world. If people knew that all they had to do was go to their employer, show that they gave a gift, and all of a sudden their $50 now means $100.
That's amazing. I think that's a good shout out to anyone listening to this that is an employer who knows that they have that, or if you work in a company and you know that it exists, but maybe your fellow coworkers don't know, scream that message from the mountaintops. It's so cool.
Yeah, it's a way to really come, again, it's also the employer showing their support for their employees, which is really cool.
No, I love that. I think it's really important to keep in mind, obviously, that as your situation changes, so can your giving habits. And sometimes you might need to be on the receiving end of a gift in some stages of your life, or you're able to give to others in multiple different capacities. But Jessica, do you have any final thoughts on giving?
I think we've mentioned this numerous times. I just really want to kind of wrap it up by saying that philanthropy does not need to be big. We often talk about how small and consistent changes in our lives lead to big impact in all different areas, whether that's getting better sleep or drinking more water or trying to eat more green vegetables or spending more time with the people that we love. It can be overwhelming to think about things in really big chunks. If we break it down and we think about small, meaningful, and consistent changes, we can have a huge impact together as a community.
Amazing. Well, thank you so much to you both for coming on and talking to us about this today. I know that there are so many organizations out there that could use support, whether it's through your money or your time or your talent. And I think it's really helpful to understand all the ways we can be giving so that we're all helping each other just do a little better in this world.
Well, thank you.
Love it. Thank you. Thank you so much for having us.
You're so welcome.
I truly believe that there are a lot of people that want to give that don't think they're giving enough or don't know how to do so or where to go, or there's a lot of giving people who want to make this their career. So to get to hear from people who will get to do this every single day and make money doing it, and just how passionate both of you are, and just how inclusive this giving space and accessible this giving space truly is, I think is important to keep people motivated, and two, to help the world understand that, like you said, Jessica, it doesn't have to be big to have an impact. And I thank you both for what you do and get to do, obviously, every day, because I think that one, I'm benefiting from your talents right now with my fundraiser and the stuff that I'm doing, but just in general, how many people are going to listen to this and feel motivated to find a way to give, and that's super, super important to us.
Thanks, you two. Really appreciate it. It was so nice to meet you.
You too.
Okay, bye guys.
Bye.
Well, as my father-in-law says, takers eat better, but givers sleep better. Credit unions really believe in finding the creative, fun, and financially responsible ways to give back to causes you love. One prime example of this is their Loyal to Local challenge that encourages shopping at your favorite small businesses. Thanks for listening to Your 2 Cents, the podcast, made possible by credit unions in partnership with Canadian Content Studios.